Is Trump's army short on gear? Supplies running dry at the worst possible time. Pentagon in panic, scrambling to rebuild bunker busters after the June war. Factories in overdrive, racing the clock. Massive Ordnance Penetrators return to the battlefield. But with a catch. These 30,000-pound beasts are back. Barely. Old tech gets recycled to keep MOPs flying. Vintage parts patched in. Will they hold up under fire? Trump's army in tatters as Khamenei teases a secret new weapon. Iran smirks while US forces falter. What's their game changer?
They say we sent a ship to Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous vessel, but even more dangerous is the weapon that can send it to the bottom of the sea. In one of his recent speeches, the US president said that for 47 years, the US has not been able to depose the Islamic Republic. He has complained to his own people that for 47 years, the US has not been able to depose the Islamic Republic. This is a good confession. I say that you will not be able to do this either.
The June 2025 Iran strikes revealed how limited America's giant bunker-buster bomb reserves had quietly become. The operation exposed serious concerns about sustaining any long, high-intensity air campaign. B-2 bombers used 14 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators against Iran's hardened nuclear sites in one wave. The Pentagon then scrambled to fund new orders and rebuild the rapidly depleted stock. To speed things up, US engineers reverse-engineered a key bomb component instead of designing it from zero. They borrowed proven hardware concepts from the Army's ATACMS ballistic missile program. Reusing ATACMS-style tech avoided years of fresh design, testing, and certification work. That shortcut meant new bunker busters could reach bomber units in time to meet urgent war planning demands. These behind-the-scenes moves surfaced later in an Air Force explanation on restocking GBU-57 MOP bombs. The statement outlined why accelerated contracts and reverse engineering were deemed essential. ATACMS-derived parts let the Pentagon fix a key weakness in the MOP without redesigning the entire bomb. A new sole-source contract with Boeing was justified as the fastest way to refill nearly exhausted MOP stocks. The Air Force said it would need new MOP tail kits and components delivered from January 2028 onward. USAF paperwork noted that recreating the entire tail kit design from scratch would have taken around 5 years. The KMU-612B tail kit contained the bomb's GPS-aided inertial navigation and other vital control electronics. The MOP remained the only conventional US weapon capable of striking some of Iran's deepest hardened targets. The 30,000-pound MOPs could, for now, be flown operationally only by B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. The USAF said Boeing's control of most MOP tail kit rights left it effectively stuck with one supplier. The government admitted it lacked the technical data, drawings, and software for the MOP tail kit. A prior move spun out the warhead casing design so the government would own that piece of the IP. The Pentagon used MOP as a fresh example of its wider fight against defense vendor lock. Trump's team pushed contracting changes to open big weapon programs to more outside suppliers. War Secretary Pete Hegseth vowed to end monopolies by letting approved third-party modules plug into key systems. This came as the U.S. Air Force handed Boeing a sole-source contract for new GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator bunker buster bombs, according to Defense News and other outlets. Reports say the deal is valued at more than $100 million, with the first replacement bombs and parts scheduled to start arriving from January 2028. The new buy also covers extra tail guidance kits and other key weapon system components needed to rebuild and sustain the MOP inventory. In Operation Midnight Hammer, 7 B-2 stealth bombers launched a coordinated night strike, releasing 14 GBU-57 mega bunker buster bombs against Iran's most critical nuclear facilities in 2025. The B-2 raid slammed into deeply buried sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, aiming to cripple hardened enrichment halls and underground command nodes central to Iran's nuclear program. In 2026, Tehran claimed that several of the massive American bunker buster bombs had failed to detonate and were still lodged in or near key nuclear sites. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned that unexploded ordnance near sensitive facilities created serious safety concerns, from blast hazards to potential knock-on radiation risks if containment failed. Those unexploded weapons could also offer Iran a rare physical window into US penetration technology, warhead architecture, and materials used to punch through reinforced bunkers. If engineers recover intact components, they could carefully strip, scan, and test them, turning each bomb into a valuable intelligence package for future weapons research. Insights from the wreckage could help Iran refine its own missile and warhead designs, while also improving bunker layouts, shielding, and tactics to better withstand similar strikes. Despite the risks of unexploded MOPs, President Donald Trump has repeatedly cited Midnight Hammer as a stark reminder to Tehran of America's willingness and ability to hit hardened targets. In this tense shadow, Iran and the United States convened a second round of nuclear talks on February 17 in Geneva, trying to turn battlefield pressure into a diplomatic framework. Oman again played quiet mediator, shepherding delegations after hosting an initial round of discussions in Muscat that set the stage for deeper Geneva negotiations. Iran's foreign minister indicated both sides had at least converged on core guiding principles for a potential agreement, even if technical details and sequencing still remained contentious. US Vice President J.D. Vance struck a cautious tone, saying on February 17 that the nuclear talks went well in some ways, hinting at modest progress but leaving major gaps unresolved.
برای یک سری اصول راهنما تونستیم یک موافقت کلی.
We managed to reach a general agreement on a number of guiding principles, based on which we will move forward from now on, and start working on text for a possible agreement.
یک توافق احتمالی خواهیم. این معنیش این نیست که ما به سرعت میتونیم به توافق برسیم.
This does not mean that we can quickly reach an agreement, but at least the path has started. We hope that this is done as soon as possible, and we are ready to spend enough time on it. Nevertheless, when you reach the stage to put together a text, things becomes more difficult and detailed. Good progress was made compared to the previous meeting, and now there is a clear path ahead of us, and I consider this a positive point. It was agreed that both sides start working on the text for a possible agreement, and then exchange the drafts and decide on a date for the third round.
I think the president has a lot of options. We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that too. And so what the president has been very clear with the Iranians, and actually I just talked to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner this morning about some of their negotiations, is the United States has certain red lines. Our primary interest here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, there are a lot of other regimes, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them. That would be a disaster for the American people, because then you have these crazy regimes all over the world with the most dangerous weapons in the world, and that's one of the things the president has said he's going to prevent. Now, we would very much like, as the president has said, to resolve this through a conversation and a diplomatic negotiation, but the president has all options on the table. And, one thing about the negotiation I will say this morning is, in some ways it went well. They agreed to meet afterwards, but in other ways it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it, but of course the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point, but if we do, that'll be the president's call. To appreciate, it's one of the most hostile and also one of the most irrational regimes in the world. You can't have people like that have the most dangerous weapon known to man. It would be awful for our security. It would be awful for the future of our children. Look, everything is on the table. We certainly want Iran to stop being a state sponsor of terrorism. They're one of the world's largest state sponsors of terrorism. There are a lot of ways in which they endanger America's national security, but the most important way they could is if they acquired a nuclear weapon. And that is the red line the President of the United States has consistently said.
US President Donald Trump has repeatedly warned that if nuclear talks with Tehran fail, the US is prepared to launch new military strikes on Iran. Iranian leaders have countered that any US attack would trigger retaliation against American bases, forces, and interests across the wider Middle East.